metals. And so the top priority really needs to be improving recycling. And I'm sorry, in that 60% also includes organic material that could be composted. So if we can improve recycling and add significant composting program, the potential is there to divert 60% of what's currently in the waste stream. On top of that, there's another 15% of the waste stream is made up of non-recyclable plastics. So, some really great strategies to address eliminating non-recyclable plastics include, bans, ordinances, extended producer responsibility, which I think we'll hear more about later today. So, in the context of where we are with incineration, currently, even if you're sending your trash to an incinerator, 20 to 30% by weight of what goes to the incinerator ends up in a landfill as toxic ash. If we implement the 3 strategies to increase recycling, increase composting, and eliminating non-recyclable plastics, that's going to address 73% of the waste stream, resulting in just 27% of the trash remaining, and having the potential to just completely skip the incinerator altogether. So hopefully these numbers help kind of clarify the opportunities and the challenges that Baltimore's facing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
And for all of the work that you have done to help Baltimore expose the system for what it is and what it is burning, and how the harms of burning and burying affect communities. And we'll take questions. If you do have any questions for Alex, please place them in the chat, and we'll take questions at the end. So please place them in the chat so you won't forget them. And as you heard, most of the plastics are not being recycled, and they cannot be recycled. And so I am here to say that, Baltimore is playing a role in this bigger system of burning and burying, and disposing of products that just should not be designed to begin with, especially if you only can get one use out of them. So in Baltimore, of course, the Bresco incinerator costs $55 million a year in health damages to residents, and that's from one polluting. Our incinerator is located in a community of color and in low income, just like most are. And what we have created here in Baltimore is the space to talk about this system and to say that this status quo system is not the system that we want to continue with, that we want to advance to a zero waste system, which means calling for recycling, reusing, composting, and redesigning of products. And that's what residents work at and our planet at the center, and not these big companies that creates profit off of single-use plastics, but don't have to deal with the burden of them being buried or burnt in their communities. And really what we see is that not everything that's produced is to be able to fit in the zero waste system. And single-use plastic is one of them. I bet we can all speak again to just boom in single-use plastics, housing literally everything that we see, and that we just feel like it's overwhelming and we cannot escape it. And really, that is what's happening. The truth is that from the point of extraction to transporting it, to just the disposal of plastics, they're harmful. And really, the matter of fact is that the only ways that's really, or the main 2 ways that they're being dealt with in their disposal is to be burnt or buried. And that is 49% of them are landfill, 47% is burnt, and then there's 3% that is recycled. And this is really to shed light on that myth that plastics are being recycled, which people like these big companies want you to believe, because then they can keep creating this profit and going just like business as usual for them. And so this report shows that the blame cannot be on how well people are recycling. It can't be people are just bad recyclers, because again, like was mentioned by Alex, 2/3 of the plastics are not even recyclable to begin with. And so the other half, only 5.6% is actually making it in the bins. And so that means that people are, wish cycling where they wish that it could be recycled and then putting it in, that's also creating contamination. And really, it really goes back to see, is it really the resident's job to continuously try to figure out all these different plastics, which ones can be recycled, which ones can't be recycled, or is it really the actual responsibility of the people that created this plastic crisis to actually take responsibility for the plastic that they are creating and putting in our environment? And it's a time for them to do that. It's time to literally call those companies out that's creating a profit off of residents while they are bearing with the indisposal of burning and burying. And it's time for them to have to worry about producing a product that doesn't end up being burnt or that isn't created to be burnt or buried. And so we are continuously working hard to like really debunk this myth of plastic being recycled and really call it out for what it is. And this report is doing that. It's telling the facts that it is not being recycled, and that we have to call here in Baltimore for a ban of products to not, like single-use plastic products, not to be able to be burned. And really to really deal with it, to call for the production of plastics to stop. It is harmful. It is hurting communities. And it's really about, at the end of the day, it's about surviving this plastic crisis. And the people that created it they aren't dealing with that. They aren't dealing with that pollution that's in communities. And so we are very thankful for this report. And we're thankful that Baltimore was a part of it, because it really is pushing forward this campaign to really push for zero waste and to save our communities and our lives that are at risk constantly every day, to produce a profit for minimum people. It's not even producing profit for the communities. And so with that, the effects of plastics just being harmful in the community, we do want to welcome Dr. Dan Morheim to actually speak to that.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. A lot of the things I was going to say, the two previous speakers, Alex and Shawanda, just said, but I will go over some of the points. My name is Dan Morheim. I'm an emergency medicine physician here in Maryland. Also served in the Maryland House of Delegates for 24 years. Today, I'm representing CPSR, Chesapeake Physicians for Social Responsibility, an organization of over 900 Maryland physicians and other health professionals. And our mission is to address with urgency the solutions that threaten civilization posed by the climate crisis, nuclear weapons, as well as related issues of pollution, toxic effects on health as seen through an intersectional lens of environmental, social, and racial justice. I'm here to join with all of you to alert the public to the dangers of plastic waste and specifically the incineration of plastics. The thing is that plastics don't disappear when we are done with them. And most plastics, as was said, they only get used once before entering the waste stream. There they degrade and enter our water, air, soil, plants, and animals, and eventually us. We've seen pictures of seabirds caught in plastic rings, and we know about the millions of plastic particles that are polluting every ocean and waterway. But it's not just happening out there, it's happening to us too. We are not immune and we can't avoid it. Plastics are made from fossil fuels, and usage increases the demand for these non-renewable fuels. But when these are burned, residues go into the air just like the exhaust from cars, trucks, and smokestacks. Besides contributing to climate change, this leads to a range of health issues, from asthma, which I see a lot in the emergency room, to heart disease, to cancer, to developmental disorders in children. Is it any wonder that all these diseases are on the rise, especially in the neighborhoods that have been referred to? Further, to manufacture the type of plastics that we use, various elements and chemicals are added. When these are burned, these are released as well. When plastics are burned, they're released as well. There are hundreds of these toxins that are generated from this chemical stew that I could list. But here are some of the ones that are most significant and you may have heard of. Cadmium, chromium, and benzene, all known carcinogenics, causes of cancer. Hydrogen cyanide, a corrosive irritant. Lead that can enter our bodies by inhalation or ingestion and can cause permanent neurological damage in children. I think most people know about the issues of lead, but that comes out in these smokestacks. And dioxins, another toxin in many forms. One you've probably all heard of, Agent Orange, linked to a variety of serious medical problems, including cancers, developmental disorders in children, reduced fertility, miscarriages, heart disease, and diabetes. This problem is serious, catastrophically, ultimately, and it's time we take definitive action, and this will involve many steps on many levels. As individuals, do the best we can decrease our use of plastics. Let's stop using single waste plastic bags and start using durable tote bags to carry our groceries and other products. It's called for here by this meeting. Stop burning plastics in incinerators. This just distributes the toxins over a wider area. If possible, make plastics from renewable sources like plants, and be sure those plastics are safe too at all stages of use. situation right now, the plastic industry makes what it wants, but then it's up to us as individuals, governments, taxpayers, and health professionals, and the ecosystem of all living things to figure out what to do with the leftovers, the enormous growing pile of toxic waste. That's why this industry and all its users along the way need to take full responsibility for the complete life cycle of their products. We challenge the plastic industry to rework the chemistry of all plastics and design them to be used to be able to be fully and safely biodegradable, or if not designed to be 100% recyclable and reusable, make them so that they never have to enter the waste stream. This means reconfiguring the chemistry down to the level of the atom and molecule, and this must be thought through from initial use to the end product to reuse. In the final analysis, it's not about regulating how much waste can be allowed. As William McDonough, an eco architect and designer, said, regulation is a sign of design failure. Regulation is a sign of design failure. We should not be saying that breathing or eating or getting exposed to this amount of toxin is okay, but another amount is not. No amount of toxin is appropriate, no amount. We keep saying this level, is dangerous. They're all dangerous. Our environment and our bodies are stressed to the maximum and can't tolerate much more of this or any other toxic pollution. We are smart enough now to figure this out, and we can do so by taking the steps outlined here today. It's an honor to be with you. Chesapeake Physicians for Social Responsibility fully supports this efforts, and we will do all we can as health professionals to back you up and support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for just being here and exactly what you said. I just want to speak to like no amount is, is livable, and it's bad at any amount. And it's not about if it crosses this certain threshold of like when it becomes toxic, it's toxic, period. And so we have to deal with it now, and we cannot let it just be a certain amount is okay, because then when is enough okay? And so I thank you for speaking to that and to the health impacts that comes from burning plastic that we see and feel every day in our communities, like asthma, upper respiratory illnesses. And so I thank you for speaking to that. Next up, we have Diane Whitner, who has a refill station that she owns, and that is called Ecotopia, that she'll speak about and how that got started and how well it's doing. And where we can go to if we advance to zero waste and start to like lessen and just ban single-use plastics, period, for being used, because we do not need them. So I'll pass it to you.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, great, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you to everybody for the wonderful work you're doing. It's an honor to be with this great group today. So my name is Diane Whitner, and I am a Baltimore area sole proprietor of Maryland's first refill station business, Ecotopia. And my message, which you'll hear throughout, is twofold, but these are the two main things I want you to keep in mind. Single-use plastic trash can be prevented, primarily through reuse and refill packaging systems. Policies should focus on refill and reuse at all scales to effectively address the plastic pollution catastrophe we live with here in Baltimore, in the surrounding region, and in other cities and other communities throughout the country. The second point is that through Ecotopia in these last years, I discovered that reuse and refill is what people want. If you want evidence, please visit my website, ecotopia.org. Look under the customers category. I didn't even take pictures of that many customers over the years, but you'll see dozens upon dozens of smiling faces and happy hands holding their refill containers. So it's what customers want. Here's my story. Using mostly biodegradable ingredients, local vendors, and my garden herbs, I make and sell trash-free cleaning powder products, laundry detergent, scouring scrub, and hand scrub powder. And my joke is that I tell people we can clean it up, and I'm not necessarily talking about only our homes. My research and development started about 9 years ago, and Ecotopia launched in 2015. My focus is in-person sales, although I do have an online store, and due to COVID, I had to pause my refill stations operation, and I still do occasional refill deliveries. And I hope to return to market soon. So prior to COVID, about 2 weeks a month, I would set up my refill station stall at Baltimore's two biggest farmers markets. Customers had container choices. They could bring their own containers for any quantity, since I had a tear scale, and they could use my recycled containers, or they could purchase my products in new glass jars and return for discounted refills with or without the original containers. I usually had upcycled containers available, many different sizes. I deliberately offered complete flexibility for the amount to purchase, but also for cost, along with convenience, especially because I wasn't at markets every weekend. Um, Additionally, my products are concentrated, so that's a deliberate thing. But with my arts background, I also deliberately created a tempting, cheerful setup to encourage people to do the right thing, not to cause guilt. And by design, I never use new plastic bags for purchases or refills. By design, my products smell great, thanks to essential oils and my garden herbs. By design, my jars have colorful lids and beautiful matching tags with botanical designs created by a local artist. To keep track of refill numbers, I made a colorful local creature chalkboard, changing numbers up after each day of sales. And this way, customers could be pleased to be part of the solution. By 2020, I had finally developed loyal returning customers from all walks of life, including many families with children. My marketing had mostly been standing at the farmers markets for all these years, even though I have an online social media presence. Overall, Ecotopia customers, even with this occasional setup, they prevented over 2,500 items of trash and of plastic trash, to be honest. A lack of customer choices regarding refill isn't the fault of residents. Policy choices over time brought us all into this literal disastrous mess, and people get that. Back in the day, refill containers were the norm, using materials that are still currently available: glass, paper, ceramic, fabric, metal, cardboard. People understand the deadly origins and consequences of reliance on single use plastic and of burying or burning trash. So let's bring back non plastic refill and reuse containers. The stakes couldn't be higher. It's about our shared community health, economic opportunities for everyone, and well being for everyone. Future generations are counting on this. I know this because I'm also a career educator. This is a big topic, as I know people here must know. So, one more time, let's bring back plastic free refill and reuse containers. Thank you.
And I think that goes right in. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do in communities and having this refill station to show that this is possible. We can do it. And so I definitely think that actually goes right into Carlos Sanchez, our own, a youth leader here in Baltimore, who has been working just restlessly just to move us away from burning and burying to transition to zero waste. Who's able to speak to like not even being able to experience back in the days having those refill stations and being a part of that. And so I'll pass it to you, Carlos, to just speak to it.
Hi, everyone. Like Shonda said, my name is Carlos Sanchez. I'm a youth leader. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. As we start to reach the end of today's launch, hopefully this report was able to shine some light on the truth about single-use plastics in Baltimore and how only 3% of plastic is actually recycled and 96% is burned and buried. As a youth leader, I wanted to add that this issue does matter, and it's not an issue that can only be resolved, that cannot simply be resolved by recycling. We have a local and state vision for this transition to zero waste, but our city and state are still pushing funding into incineration and not zero waste policies. I, as a youth, see that using our natural resources to create something for one-time use is ridiculous and reckless. And I'm asking for you as community, labor, and government officials to see it too. I know that some people can remember a time when you had to reuse a cup and plastic was in literally everything you touched. What I'm saying is that my generation didn't get to experience that. That my generation is experiencing is the toxic effect that comes with burning and burying single-use plastic. we are surrounded by plastic pollution. It is on our air, on our land, and in our water, and we demand a change. We are not calling for you to recycle more plastics, because even if you did, that wouldn't address what was mentioned, the 2/3 of single-use plastic that can't be recycled. What we are calling for is for you to stand up with us and calling for Baltimore to place a ban on burning all single-use plastics at the Brusco incinerator and make polluters pay. What are you what are you saying is no? What you are saying is no to the worst option for dealing with plastic waste, while we work to solve the problem at the root by ending single-use plastic production. I am taking a stand for the youth by running for my school's student body president and making sure that our schools also play a part in this change by engaging with our students to develop a more compost friendly environment. So the question is, what will you do to be a part of stopping the burning of single use plastic? And remember that our city is not alone in this plastic crisis, but we can start addressing our problem locally by taking this stand on not burning plastic. Then we can really accomplish a just transition to zero waste. You heard today from many speakers about the harms of single-use plastics, but we need to help. We need help from everyone, including those on today's launch and those who aren't. And that's why please sign on to our petition to ban burning plastics and share it with all your family and friends to sign on and save our community and our city. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Carlos. And so we can have some time for some questions. Please place your questions in the chat, and I can try to read some of them off, and any speaker can answer these questions that's up. What can we do to get the city to ban single-use plastics? It's a question that was by Nicole.
Well, I'll take a shot at that. Dan Morheim here. Nicole, thank you for your question. Obviously, doing that requires legislation. I was in the state legislature for 24 years and did a lot of environmental bills, including the state's creation of the state's electronic recycling program, banning microbeads from the environment, from waterways, and a number of others. And what it gets down to, at least in terms of trying to persuade legislators, is really what you're asking. And it should be both at the city and the state level. You know, there is the city, but I live in the county and people cross borders all the time for one thing and another. And that just gets to communicating in a polite and persistent and regular way with your elected officials, and let them know that you vote. Let me assure you, legislators will always look up when they get a communication from somebody in their district, especially, is that person a registered voter? Are they in my party? And that's pretty relevant because many elections are decided by primary elections. I don't mean to sound like everybody's just cynical about this and looking at re-election, but that's certainly a key element where you can leverage your influence. And then you never quite know what's going to connect with somebody. For one legislator, it might be data about diseases and costs, something that anybody in healthcare knows about. But for another, it might be a personal connection, telling a story of somebody who developed a medical problem or some other problem. Or for a third person, it might be some positive economics that could come out of doing things differently, creating more renewable energy opportunities. But it's really persistence and staying in touch and developing that relationship. There are a lot of issues, I can tell you, when I was in the legislature, that
Oh, I think he froze. Okay, I think he's gonna probably come back in. Oh, is he back? Alex, are you trying to say something?
Yeah, oh yeah, I could add a couple things to that too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, like Dan is talking about, the legislative angle is really important, and using your power of voting and participatory government is critical. I think, what this report shows too is that there's a real cost to the community of plastics, both in terms of human health impacts, as well as just the cost of, having to deal with this packaging in terms of what it's doing to the non-recyclable impact on the recycling system, and just the fact that the community's paying the cost of this waste that the producers are profiting off of in the community. And, you can look to recent legislation in the state of Maine that's really trying to transfer, through extended producer responsibility, some of those costs back to the manufacturers. I think that's a really important angle. But then on the other side, we have businesses like Diane's that are really the opportunity, and there's another Gaia report that recently came out that shows, the impact of reuse, refillables, composting and recycling, even how much more of an impact in terms of local economic development, local job creation that those systems have compared to, this linear economy of make waste that the manufacturers are really profiting off of. So it kind of comes back to this idea that, we can really go around in circles trying to maintain corporate profits and figure out systems. And that's why they're pushing things like chemical recycling and advanced recycling bills. And I think that's really the fork in the road that we're at, where those are going to benefit industry to continue extracting resources and dumping them in our communities, whereas this alternative path of reducing non-recyclable, of all single-use products and creating local economic development opportunities is a critical direction that we need to head.
Thanks, Alex. I think that also I skipped if there are any media questions. I see one of them that was in the chat, just trying to find it.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was curious if you had been in touch with the city at all, because I know they have launched their own plan. I know it's their goal to have renewable energy and zero waste. And I know it's something that you've been engaging with them on a local level. Do you get a sense of what their response to this is going to be? Because I emailed them last night and he said they hadn't seen the report. And do you have any idea if they're willing to work with you on this and adopt some of your proposals?
Thanks for your question. I'll open it up to also anybody on that wants to speak to that.
I can just provide a brief response. This is Greg Sawtell, is that Baltimore City Council representatives were invited to come to this press conference and to engage in this launch event, and as well as Mayor Scott. And while they aren't here today, which is frankly a disappointment, we are encouraged by new Department of Public Works leadership who is committed to collaborating with the Zero Waste Coalition to advance both the Zero Waste Plan and Baltimore's Less Waste Plan. So what we see in the future immediately following this launch is ensuring that officials do read and understand the key findings of this report, and that we begin the process of determining if there's willingness, Jessel, to do exactly what you asked, which is to simply put, prohibit the worst end-use way of dealing with the single-use plastic crisis that we're all dealing with, which is burning it at the Bresco incinerator.
And I think to add on to that, it's really, it's going to take real movement. It's not only just giving a commitment that's like words, but actually implementing something, giving real movement, giving funding to the new zero waste infrastructure to be created to actually deal with the waste that we are producing that is going into the incinerator, and then acknowledging, like this report is, what can't be a part of this zero waste future, which is the single-use plastics. It does not have a place. And then also invested in new systems like the reuse stations for people to be able to go to and actually refill, as you heard of from Diana today. And so I think it's really important for the city to actually have movement and not only commitments. But I am hopeful, as Greg said, with the new DPW director, that hopefully we'll see something move soon. And I think, give me 1 second. I think Dan had something to say, but.
I think I spoke earlier, but my computer froze, so I came downstairs. I don't know how much you caught, but I was really talking about how to try to influence legislators.
Yeah, we heard a little bit, then you froze a little bit.
Is there any part you'd like me to go over? 'Cause I don't know where I got cut off.
I think that was actually just.
Well, basically, it's just persistent, polite messaging of different types, and let them know you're a voter in the district and you're paying attention.
Thank
By
you.
the way, if they do something you like that's otherwise connected, people like praise. Nothing wrong with that. So maybe it doesn't have to do with this issue, but something else. You can say, thank you very much for helping with this. However, I'd also like to call this to your attention. Works well.
And I think that that is important because this getting plastics out of the waste stream is important, and it's going to take a movement from everyone, honestly, and in different roles, governmental officials, like Carlos said, labor, community residents. It's going to take all of us to make this movement happen and to ensure that burning and burying of plastics does not persist. And if there is also any more questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat.
Well, someone's called attention to Delegate Brooke Learman's EPR bill. I'll just say I worked with Delegate Learman when I was in the legislature, and she's great. And I think she has promoted the plastic bag ban and a number of other good environmental programs. So let her know that, but got to persuade her colleagues too.
And strong EPR, which is extended producer responsibility, which is part of what we mean concretely when we say make polluters pay and take responsibility for the problems they're imposing on local governments and communities, is in the call to action that is being shared in the link that we're asking everyone to sign on to and share. Part of the issue here is urgency. And while supporting positive steps is key, we also always need to apply pressure, particularly with those that we have the most influence over. So Delegate Learman, who is a friend to advancing zero waste, gets it. And she needs to know that this is a key priority. Maine is the first state in the country to pass EPR, or extended producer responsibility legislation, and Maryland can certainly become the second. The key is that it's strong legislation that has accountability and transparency, so that targets that are set forth in legislation are actually met.
Let me offer one specific on that. The electronic recycling bill, or a series of bills that I promoted when I was in the legislature and passed, did in fact put the funding for the program on the backs of the computer manufacturers and producers. And so the way it works is they have to pay a fee to the state of Maryland, which covers the cost for local governments to do electronic recycling. They pay that fee for the privilege of selling computers in Maryland. But if they take back their products, that fee is lowered. It's not a huge fee because these products, it just doesn't cost that much to set up recycling programs, and it certainly doesn't put them out of business or translate over to consumers. But that's how it works. So we do have one model in this state in one area that's been very effective for the last 10, 15 years.
And just again, I just posted the link in the chat for anyone else that's looking for the petition for them to be able to sign on. I challenge you all today to share that link on your social media, talk to your family or friends about it. And one thing that I did hear that was just recently on the first Gaia's launch of this plan was when thinking about like the legacy that we leave behind with plastic, is that a legacy that we want to leave behind? And when you think about it, it's not. It's not what we want to pass on to future generations. It's not a burden that we wish to continue. It's really harmful, and we should not be continuing that. And we can call it out, and we can do something. And so definitely, you know, reach out to your city council people. We all were invited to come here tonight, as mentioned already. And it is sad that none of them did come. So definitely, you know, pass on this petition, show this petition to whoever you can and get them to sign on, and do whatever, like Carlos said, any part that you can do in this, and getting the ban on single-use plastics done, please do. And if you also need, if you want, if you need access to this plan or anything like that, it should have been in the chat already. But you can also, again, reach out to us at mysbclt@gmail.com with any questions, or to also just let us know of something that you're already doing, if you are doing things on this urgent matter of stopping the burning of plastics. Yeah, so we thank you all for being here. If you have any more last questions, you can place them in the chat for me to see. And I'll also, if you are like on a phone or anything like that, you can mute now, one person at a time, hopefully, if you do have any last minute burning questions. All right.
So look forward to follow-up. The key folks are pointing it out in the chat. Elected officials need to know that this is a priority issue. We need to collectively do that. This was an opportunity to learn together and launch the new findings from this report. The challenge now is to advance this issue. It is disappointing that our elected officials are not here today, but we can change that. Moving forward, our challenge is to get this message to them and put in front of them concrete solutions, which we've done, for action steps that can be taken, that are absolutely achievable in order to begin to reduce the plastic pollution crisis in Baltimore.
All right, so thank you all. Grab the petition out. I'll leave it open for a few more minutes for you to be able to grab that link to the petition. And also for any of the speakers, you can also definitely put your information in the chat for people to be able to reach out to you. And thank you all for being a part here and playing a role in stopping the burning of plastics and addressing that this myth that plastics are not being recycled. And it's not, you know, residents' fault. It's just a product that was created. That mean disposal is burning and burying it. So thank you all for being here. Share the link. Share the link on all of your social medias, please. Also, for any of my speakers, if you guys want to say anything else, you can. It's open for you. All right, thank you all for coming. Hope you got the link. If you didn't, just reach out to us by email. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.